It's Cassidy here at the Poets Corner with another author interview. And today I'm excited to be speaking with actor, playwright, and indie author S.W. Laro as we talk all about his books, plays, and more. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing fine. How you doing in Vegas?
Doing pretty good. I can't wait to talk to you about your creative journey. It seems amazing. But first, I have some introductory questions for you. So, where are you from?
Originally New Jersey, then I moved to New York, Queens, Brooklyn, then Hell's Kitchen, the West Side, and I've spent the last 25 years full time in Vermont.
Oh,
That's where I've done the bulk writing in Vermont. Yeah,
nice. I bet it's so pretty up there. Lots of trees.
lots of trees, beautiful color in the autumn. Only place I like to be, but if anybody watched the weather, we got a lot of rain. We got flooded this summer, so
Oh.
rain, rain, rain.
What has been your favorite place to live?
I love Vermont because we came here as kids. So it's a family house on 40 acres.
Oh,
But I will always be beholden. Yeah, it's a family house, but I would always be beholden to Hell's Kitchen and
yeah.
Manhattan because I spent most of my life there. And then my parents would bring my sister and I to Vermont throughout our whole lives. So a little bit of both.
Oh, that's so cool. I love to hear that. So, who are some authors who have shaped your love and style for writing?
It would have to begin. My father used to write for the Twilight Zone, but he was never accepted. So as a boy, I found some of his early teleplays. So my father, Lewis, would be my first inspiration. After that, it was Dickens, Hemingway, Faulkner. Um, um, Later on in life, it became Henry Miller, Charles Bukowski, guys like that. They all shape me. But it starts with my father, Lou. He's my muse.
Oh, that is really, really cool. So, is everybody in your family writers and like very
Now,
artistic?
artistic. My mother was an actress and a model and a singer. She sang jazz her whole life. My father ran his own medical advertising business in Manhattan for 35 years. He always wrote copy, but the only person who got bit by the fiction bug was me. Since I was a kid, I've been doing fiction. So
Oh, that's really cool. So, when you aren't writing, what are you doing?
I'm a full-time social worker up here for the last 5 years. Yeah.
That is so cool. I bet that's really rewarding.
I did. It's been fun. It paid the bills. It allowed me to write as much as I wanted to write. Because I've been pretty busy, prolific. Not meaning brilliant prolific. Just my output has been a lot. But yes, but social work has been great. I still work for a parent-child center today, where I run my own youth programs for teens and kids from K to 5.
Wow. Oh, I love that. That is really neat.
Giving back a little bit because anybody out there who writes, it's a very self-indulgent process no matter how you know so giving and kind of doing kind of selfish social work after all these years, it's a good balance. It gets me out of my head.
Oh, that's perfect.
You're
Best of
a
both
writer, so you got to get out of your head sometimes.
for sure. For sure. Especially when you're always writing, always in your next project. I totally get it.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit more about your years in Hell's Kitchen, New York, where your acting and writing life began.
Well, in Hell's Kitchen was like Paris was for Henry Miller and Anise Nin back in the 20s. I always refer to it that way. Uh, I came up with two other actors who went on to have very, very big careers. Very, very unique people, very, very beautiful people. Um, I was the first one to kind of get into the business with Mortal Thoughts. I played Bruce Willis's brother in the movie Mortal Thoughts opposite Demi Moore. That was in 1991. But I realized very early that I wanted out of acting. It really led me to my writing. Writing was really what I always wanted to do. That's my innate drive,
Yeah.
but the kitchen was very, very it was a creative womb. It was really a womb, and a lot of my fiction takes place in that part of New York. Historically, I don't write a lot of modern fiction. It's all 1800s to like the 50s and 70s and stuff. So,
Oh, nice. I love it. Fusion of history and fiction. That's the best.
people don't even know how the place got its name. I mean, Hell's Kitchen really refers to a very specific part of an urban setting. It actually comes from Europe. London has a Hell's Kitchen, but
Oh,
the story I love the most is in the Depression. You had a German couple on the West Side named Mr. and Mrs. Heil, and they gave out soup to all the poor and homeless and riffraff. But over time, people mispronounced it. So they would say, I'm going down to Heil's kitchen for some soup. But it was really became, oh, you go into Hell's Kitchen to get soup. It's just an old story.
oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tough
Sweet.
place. Tough place.
Why did you choose to become an indie author, and what has your experience taught you so far?
Because there was too much rejection.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 59 and I started Vanity POD publishing in 1999 with a company called Publish America, where they paid you $1. Um, um, a lot of my early fiction went as far as Simon and Schuster. I got a book called Delcina's Tree as far as Oprah Winfrey's studio called Harpo. Um, None of those ever panned out for two very important reasons. It really wasn't the quality of the writing, even 24 years ago. I came to learn very quickly that if you didn't have an agent or representation, you really couldn't get people to read your work. And that still exists today.
Yeah.
So even with my background, I would always get my work, whether it was a play, a screenplay, or a novel, as far as the gatekeeper, but I could never get it into acquisitions. And trying to get an agent today, I mean, it's just not going to happen for anybody. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. So I always enjoyed indie writing and indie publishing because I could do it all myself. Today you have what you already know, probably just hybrid agencies where they want you to pay. I'm not into that. I've already invested in myself as a hybrid agency. So I'm not going to, if I want to have somebody do editing for me or a line edit, I can pay somebody.
Yeah.
But a publisher should just launch your book, period.
Yep. I agree. I agree. Well, traditional publishing is very, very hard to get into. And I think that's why being an indie author has expanded so much, and more people are choosing to do it that way, because then you can just focus on, like you said, like growing yourself and not worrying about putting money in somewhere else, like investing in yourself.
The real money is really not in book sales, whether they're paperback, hardcover, ebook, is everybody wants to sell the rights to the film business.
Yeah.
The money is Hollywood and independent production companies and streaming media. That's where the money is. I don't care if I sold 1,000 books, I'd feel accomplished.
Yeah.
But, I have screenplays that I'm actively trying to sell to Hollywood. I have a couple of leads and stuff like that. And so, I'd like to cash in with an option or an outright buy. But even that is something that's a big ask. So to your point, Cassidy, and I'm kind of riffing here, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
is it's what gets you up in the morning. I mean, you're a young woman, young writer. You're newly married, I think, right?
Yes.
So you're on the beginning of a career, and I hope you become incredibly successful by the time you're 59, because I'm not. But the friends of mine that I write, we talk, and we still ask each other, why do you get up every day? See, I write from 6 to 8 in the morning, 7 days a week. I have to write very early in the morning. I don't write at night. What gets you up every day? And the real answer is I don't have any choice.
Yeah.
It's just taking dictation from the muse. So if I'm able to sell something someday in a big way, not in the small ways, great. If not, that's life.
Yeah.
It's a big boy game. It's a big girl game.
Yep. Yeah,
Read
no.
the history of all the great authors, and I'm certainly not a great author. I'm a very, very good storyteller. I'm not a great author. I'm not a great literary author. So there's a difference. But at the end of the day, even the greats have great, great provenance and stories about endless rejection, endless rejection. I
Yep.
could go into detail, but we don't have enough time.
Well, and a lot of writers too are not appreciated in their time, and they get popular after, once their stories are just out in the world for us to read 200 years later, you know?
At this point, rejection or almost or getting close or near hit, it's just part of the game.
Yeah.
Basically, you have to stay in it until you find like-minded people like you who are fearless, you, the collective general you, and you'll be able to move forward, especially today because there's so many avenues for production, so many avenues.
Good points. So I understand that you have over a dozen books and plays on Amazon where readers can check out your work. So where do you get your inspiration from?
The early the early books all came from um, dreams, like Delcina's Tree, the Blarney Boys, was all written about um, people I knew, but the plots all came through dreams. They were very hard books to write because those were the days when I really I was much too difficult in the process. I was getting in the way of my own plotting. You have to really just let it all unfold naturally, and then you have flow.
Yeah.
So those books were hard to write, but they all came from dreams. Blarney Boys was based on a lot of men I used to drink with at the Blarney Stone in Hell's Kitchen, but it's also an allegory. It's also a metaphor for my own life and about religion and faith. Not mine, but the plot of that story, the metaphor is faith. Four drunks and a Jesuit priest leave New York to go to Vermont, and the VW van is like a mobile confessional. Delcina's Tree was about is in honor of the Jamaican woman that's my second mother. She raised me since I was 7, and I wrote that book in tribute of her. That's the book that went to Oprah, but when they realized that a white man had written about a coming of age story about a Jamaican girl, they turned me down. It was really that basic.
Oh, that's
It's
crazy.
life. It was a hard one. That was a hard one, but that was the reality of that.
Oh.
A
Well,
lot of people thought I shouldn't
yeah.
have written that book. So, but I did. You can buy it on Amazon. So,
Yes, and our viewers will need to check it out on Amazon.
and I'm willing to buy people's work too. It works both ways. So I'm a good reader. I'm a good audience. So
Sweet. So, what are your favorite genres and themes to write about?
I like historical fiction. A lot of my stuff is about 1800 maritime, um, clipper ship, opium wars, the Indian trade company, pirates, female pirate.
Ooh.
Um, I like to write a lot about the bourgeois. I failed to mention before that the writer that actually turned me on the most was Guy de Maupassant. He's one of the greatest short story writers of all time, and he wrote about the bourgeois of France. I recommend anybody who wants to be a writer to read Guy de Maupassant. He was a genius. He was Ernest Hemingway's favorite author. Um, but genres are street, gutter, hardcore people on the edge of their lives, you know, prostitutes, addicts, crooked lawyers, young people on the edge of becoming adults. I like that. I don't write rom-coms. I don't write a lot of squishy, gushy stuff, but I'm gonna say this though. I write really, really good female characters. I don't think a lot of men know how to do that. Um, so even though a lot of my books are driven by men, there's always a very powerful female involved in the story all the time. My novel Daughter of Fire is about an 1800s woman um, leaving Hell's Kitchen to be a pirate out in the Caribbean, but she has to leave New York. The whole book is about her life and her journey. So,
Wow.
like
Ooh, awesome.
they'll see in this tree about a woman. It's about a Jamaican woman. So, I will always hang my hat. Failure, whatever kind of author I'm going to become in the next, 10 years, after 26 years, I write a damn good female character.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
You need more of them. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So, what changes have you seen in your writing over the past 26 years?
I'm better. Every year I get better because I'm much more of a cruel editor of myself. Um, I
Agree.
take time. I take my time. Yeah, I was not a great writer 10 years ago, 12, 13, 14 years ago. I had really, really great stories, but many of those stories weren't executed the right way. So I'm a much more economical. I found my voice, probably my real voice, maybe about 8 or 9 years ago. The real voice.
Yeah.
And so you have to evolve and you have to be willing to really look at yourself like, wow, every word is not sacred. Every scene needs to be looked at. And you have to absolutely find a very good editor, which I never did. I never did. So if you really want a polished book, you've got to let it go for other people to red pen the hell out of it. So
Yes. Well, tell me more about your play, Joshua Limbo.
Joshua Limbo woke me up off the couch. I had just come out of a really, really long, difficult relationship, and it was mind blowing. But everything ends and something begins. But I woke up in the morning and I heard, as loud as we're talking right now, Joshua Limbo. I don't have any idea why, other than the fact that I used to live in California for 2 or 3 years, and I used to go to Joshua Tree Park all the time. I had a lot of my early spiritual epiphanies there. But the whole play kind of was outlined in about 3 days, and it was all pre-COVID. I'm not going to get political here, but I wrote it as a metaphor and an allegory about all of the Republican and kind of Trumpian and kind of hot political era that we're living in. But I
Yeah.
disguised it with two men in a hot shack, black and white, going at it. So 6 years before Don't Look Up, which I absolutely love, the Leonardo DiCaprio film, which is all about slamming, republicanism and Trumpism. Conservatism is fine, but not what we have now. Anyway, I love that movie. But 6 years before that movie, I wrote the definitive allegory about this era, which is this play. So that play is now in the queue of one of the biggest film companies on the East Coast, on the West Coast. I'm
Oh,
not going to discuss it, but I do hope, because it's not expensive to produce, because I did it on stage. I did two stage readings prior to COVID, and it was very, very well received. But it was always supposed to be an independent film. It's two guys in a shack in Joshua Tree, tearing each other to pieces. Racist, greed,
yeah.
anger. It's all about male toxicity. But it takes place in the 90s.
Wow.
So when cell phones big as bricks, it was called a brick phone, and everybody was listening to Madonna. So bring back those days, brick phones and Madonna. Hallelujah.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
that is so cool. Congratulations. Um,
Well, we talk again in the future and I have a deal. But, if not, that's life. Move on. Next.
Wow, sweet. Well, wish you all the best luck there. That is really cool. I like that, and I will definitely be checking the play out.
It's two guys going at it, and the divine feminine part of it is all the desert herself.
Yeah.
So the desert can allow these men to survive. She makes all the rules.
Nice. Oh, I love it. So tell me more about your 6-book series, Jack Rants, and how long did it take you to write all 6 books?
When I finally got opened up creatively and emotionally after 2016, those books really came out in a flood. So every 18 months, I would have a third draft of the next book. But I always knew that I was going to kill Rance off before it got too crazy. So it came to an end after 6 books. I wrote all 6 of those books in 4 years.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, I wrote every day I wrote every day, 6-7 days a week for 3 or 4 hours a day for 4 years.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Having that many books in a
I
series
got the
is a huge accomplishment.
I think I needed to get it out of my system. Again, it's about a 1950s gambler and detective. And the prequel is all about him living through World War II in Hell's Kitchen as a detective to get rid of Nazi spies in America and New York, which is all based on fact.
Wow.
So the prequel is actually the best of the series in my mind. I like the backstory. Otherwise, he's just a brutal 50s chauvinistic asshole, but he's madly in love with his woman, Denise. He only has one woman. That's it. So I tried to take the whole detective gumshoe genre. Those guys were never monogamous. None of them. They were loners. They were misogynists. Jack Rance is a sadist. He's a horrible guy, but he's a good guy. But he only loves one woman, no matter what.
Aw, good spin on it. I like
So,
it.
yeah. So, and Vegas takes place. It starts off in 1950s Vegas and on Fremont Street before they come east.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, they come east. He inherits land from an aunt, and the town here outside of Vermont is called Whitehall, New York. So all the books take place after Vegas in Whitehall and Lake George.
Nice. Oh, that is so exciting.
No, you write what your heart tells you to write.
Yeah, that's good.
So
What is your favorite play or book that you've ever written?
I'm not going to say it was Joshua Limbo. I'm going to say it's a play I wrote about my parents' early marriage before I was born. I was born in '63. The play takes place over the course of a year and a half, from like 61, 62 to 63, before my father went into his own business. It's called The Two. I like that play very much. I also like the play based on my independent film called Oscar Fitkin, A Vendor's Tale. So that play and screenplay became my film, which won the best feature at the 1996 International Film Festival in New York.
Oh, yay.
So,
So cool.
yeah, a long time ago. You can watch it on Vimeo. I have links on my Twitter feed and on my website, www.Rebel Riven Fiction. You can watch that independent film. But at the end of the day, that story about a hot dog vendor reliving the death of his father, that's one of my favorite plays. It wouldn't be Joshua Limbo. I just think I can sell Joshua Limbo. That's why it's out there.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. That's what it's like in the
Yeah,
writing world.
we'll see.
Nice. Well, so what has been the most rewarding part of your acting and writing journey?
That's a good question. Uh, other than having bragging rights that I was able to play Bruce Willis's brother in the film, the only film he ever made with his wife, the two biggest Hollywood stars in the 90s. And it's sad to see that he's suffering the way he is now. The best part of all of that was that I left the business because, I mean, to be honest, the rewards for being in the business were very, very few for me. The reward now, as an older man, goes back to an earlier question. What have I learned about writing? I've learned how to be a better artist for myself. Back in the day, I was a lunatic. I was a really, really hardcore guy, and I'm glad I left the business. I had no choice. I would have died if I didn't leave the business. So I'm glad I left. So my memories are good, but the learning is that the older you get, the better you become. For me, for me, I'm just talking about me. I'm not generalizing.
Yeah. Well, that's
So it's been a long journey, but I got a son. I raise a boy. I co-parent, and I wouldn't trade anything for my boy.
Oh, I love that. That's good. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I'm trying to be the best man I can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
what's for the future? Any new books or projects in the works right now?
I resurrected an old screenplay called a novel that kind of sat in the shelf for 15 years called Confessions of a Wolfman. But
Oh,
it's not about a werewolf, about a Lakota shapeshifter. It's from an American Indian point of view.
nice.
Takes
That's cool.
from an asylum. He tells his whole story from an insane asylum. But I also wrote a trilogy, but I'm not going to write the third book. I stopped after the second. I'm editing it now. It's called The Legend of Two Crows, and it's about a Lakota Papa warrior in the 1800s when the government was breaking up the Great Sioux Reservation into smaller factions. It takes place before the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Lakota. I mean, that my whole path has been American Indian since 1994. I happen to do ceremony, and so I go to Pine Ridge, I go to Wounded Knee, I go to the Sundance ceremonies, and I do my own sweat lodges. I sing and pray in Lakota. I facilitate a lot of ceremony here, but my heart is is on the reservation, and that's where I go back to often. Not now so much since the boy, but I'm going to bring him there in another couple of years. I'll bring him out there. But so the answer to your question is it's that story about two crows and this crazy werewolf story.
Wow. Oh, those both sound really cool though. Really good work in progresses. That's awesome.
Maybe we'll do an interview someday and I'll be in the asylum and I'll be telling you my story from there on a laptop.
That's funny. Oh,
Can I do a quick for you? Okay. I mean, you're a writer, so I'm going to. So you love to write, correct?
I do. Yes.
So what I love people's process. So if you indulge me for a couple minutes, what are your best times to write?
I feel like I write a lot better at night, like late at night, like 10 to 12.
Nightbird.
Yeah,
Got you.
like that's when, or like sometimes I'll lay down to go to sleep and that's when all the ideas like start coming up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I either have to write or I end up forgetting about it. So I try to take advantage of writing at night.
You try to get it all out within a 2 hour block of actual work.
Yeah, which never seems to happen. But for because I'm a content writer, so I do my work more during the day, and that's when I'm more productive with that stuff, and my creative work comes at night.
Right, but you're dedicated and you're disciplined, Cassidy. That's 90% of the game, and you got to get it done. You get it done.
For sure.
Remember that that woman author back in the 50s who wrote her book in the mornings after her kids went to school and at night, married, full-time mom, massage in his 50s. She wrote Peyton Place, and that became a blockbuster, huge. Her name was Meticulous. Her last name was Meticulous. And she sold that book in the 50s for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It became a major motion picture. But the point was, she found the time to write about small-time rural America as a housewife in the 1950s. I have enormous respect for her. It's a good book.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to check it out. That's really cool. Yeah, you got to find
So
time.
go write a bestseller.
Sweet. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the encouragement.
Absolutely.
So that's all the questions I had for you today. Do you have any closing words for our audience?
Well, I'm going to talk to all the writers out there. Anybody who's ever read Charles Bukowski knows he didn't become known until he was in his 60s, but he never gave up. His entire life as a mailman and as a bum and an alcoholic in LA, he was constantly querying the industry. But he didn't become known until he was in his 60s. It was too late then. But his epitaph on his tombstone says, "Don't even try." That was his parting words. And I always felt that was really, really kind of dark and sinister. The advice for everybody is, you bet your ass you try. You sit down and you write. And you write.
Yes. Oh,
Period.
I love it. That is a great advice.
Absolutely. And I love Charles Bukowski, but he was a little too depressive for me. But I like him. Bad epitaph.
Yeah, really bad.
I'm gonna have. Yeah, really. I mean, you know. So anyway, mine's gonna say, "I did!" Exclamation point.
Aw. Yes, good. Well, your career is super inspiring, how you have all these books, how, like you said, you've just persevered and have written and written and written and just gotten better in your craft. And I'm just really happy for you and all the stuff you got in the future.
I hope so. And likewise, and back at you, back at you. We'll do it again sometime.
Yeah,
We'll do it again sometime.
sounds great. Well, for all of our readers, I've included all your links, your website, your Twitter, so that they can follow along with your writing journey. So guys, don't forget to check it out. Thanks so much again for your time, Chris. I'm wishing you the best of luck on your indie author journey.
And you too. Namaste. Aho. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Love. Peace, love.